Over the past couple of weeks, you and I have been on quite a tear. Why do I say that? Because we've been driving cars. Yes, a lot of sports cars, but even regular old sedans. One of them was rear-wheel drive. Well, now it's time to get practical again, but let's do it with something rather fancy. And as we learned in the tech review of this very vehicle, it is quite a departure for the folks who design, engineer, and manufacture it. Today, you and I kick off with a bit of housekeeping. You see, the GV80 is indeed on offer with two engines. The most basic choice is a 2.5 turbocharged four-cylinder. However, that we will cover in another episode. Today, you and I are going to focus on the much more powerful 3.5 twin-turbo V6. As I said, 3.5, not 3.3. This is an updated engine from the Hyundai Kia group. And it is good for 375 horsepower, comes in at 5,800 RPM, and 391 pound-feet of torque, comes in at 1,300 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 4,500 RPM. Now, they do that with a bit of a trick. You see, there are two fuel injection systems here. There's a multi-point as well as gas direct injection. Now, that drives anything you want as long as it's all four wheels. You see in the V6, only on offer in all-wheel drive. The four-cylinder can be had with rear-wheel drive. And that brings us to what connects the engine with the all-wheel drive system. That would be anything you want as long as it's an 8-speed torque converter automatic. Now, we really do not need to spend a lot of time talking about VMAX or 0 to 60 because this is a baby buggy, but we do need to focus on efficiency. The US government calls this 18-23-20. So you do pay for that 391 pound-feet of torque. And then there is the curb weight, which I feel is significantly more important. You don't expect it to be a lightweight, but you don't expect it to be 4,907 pounds. If you are not a fan of imperial units, 2,225 kilograms. Should we or shouldn't we? I think we should. Let's go into sport. Give ourselves the best chance of success. With that, full taps. Wow, that is surprisingly good. Then again, we've driven a cousin of this engine, the 3.3 in the Stinger, which was really good. This one is just a bit more lively. I don't know if I would call it linear. You do need to kind of wring its neck between 3,000 and 4,000 RPM to get some power out of it. But surprisingly good for something that comes from the folks at Genesis. In the tech review, you and I covered the basic suspension underpinnings that reside underneath the GV80. Now I've had the opportunity to get more details out of the folks at Genesis, so let's drill down into that, and first stop is construction. Now, for the past many years, I have shared with you in pretty much every Hyundai and Kia episode that there is a lot of high-strength steel that goes into the construction of these. This one is a bit of a departure in that there are 5 grades of steel the vehicle is constructed out of, and yes, some of that is high-strength steel. But where they really go with a departure here is a number of the body panels are constructed of aluminum, the hood, the doors, and the tailgate. And to my recollection, I do not know of any other Hyundai Kia group vehicle that has that much aluminum making up the body panels. Then there is the all-wheel drive system. This, for the avoidance of doubt, is a completely new platform. It does not share any bits with other Hyundai Kia group cars. Yes, it underpins the G80, which is also new, but this they call the M3 rear-wheel drive platform. Very odd choice of names there. And as a result, the all-wheel drive system is tuned specifically for a rear drive bias. So I got some details on that as well, and from what I understand, there is never a time when you're just driving normally where it's 100% of the torque to the rear wheels. However, the system can send 100% of the torque to the rear wheels. Alternatively, it can send up to 50% of the torque to the front wheels. Then to augment that, in the rear, there is a limited slip differential. It is mechanical with electronic control, and can send the power 100% to either side of the vehicle in the rear. Now, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, that limited slip differential is only on offer in the fancy Prestige that we are driving. And speaking of different grades, I got more details into the wheel sizes. So in the tech review, we covered there's a 19, a 20, and a 22. That 19 basically underpins the rear-wheel drive four-cylinder car. The 20-inch wheel, that is on a lot of the different grades on offer. So the advanced, which is kind of the mid-grade model, This one, being the Prestige, of course, has the biggest 22-inch wheels on offer. If you look at it on our somewhat unscientific driving dynamic spectrum of here, here, or here, this, believe it or not, is somewhere between the middle and the higher end. There is such good control over all planes of motion, but here's the catch. It shares a driving characteristic with that Bentley Bentayga we recently drove, in that driving dynamics work up until a point, and then when you cross that line of demarcation, it kind of falls in onto itself. That said, I do feel it prudent to dig a bit deeper on that topic, because there's unusually good control over the hardest plane of motion to control, and that is pitch, especially in a tall vehicle that is very heavy. But there does need to be a bit more work done on squat and dive, and that impacts not just driving aggressively around corners, but also under panic stop situations. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game of mine, the options game, with today's contestant, the first ever Genesis SUV, the 2021 Genesis GV80. I do feel it prudent to point out this one is the all-wheel drive 3.5 twin-turbo V6 in the Prestige package, which is the fanciest one on offer, for a base price of $70,950. Now, I also feel it prudent to point out that there are other trim levels and other engines on offer. Like, for example, if it was the most basic four-cylinder rear-wheel drive, $48,900. However, if it was the most basic V6, which only comes all-wheel drive, $59,150. Then you would add the color. Now, in the tech review, we had a horrible color, Himalayan gray or silver. It had no contrast whatsoever. The interior was pretty, but no contrast with the exterior. This Adriatic blue with a dune interior with a blue dashboard, blue doors, and blue carpeting. This is magnificent. And I would go so far as to saying this vehicle, I don't know if I'm sold on the headlight treatment, but it is a design triumph when it comes to color and trim, and specifically textures. And that is exactly what makes this stunning blue stand out. I do need to share an aside here. There is an additional interior color option, not with this color, maroon seats with a green dashboard, green doors, and green carpet. That one I gotta see in person. And then the only other thing we add is the destination and handling from Korea, because that's where it's built, $1,095 for a total retail price of $72,045. Now, yes, I am sandbagging you because this is part of the Hyundai Kia group, and their playbook is you just pick the car and there are no options. Now, I do need to point out a couple of things. This one has everything. It's got the head-up display, it's got the 3D instrument binnacle, it's got the much fancier sound system, the monoblock brakes, as well as an electrically adjustable rear seat. No, not just to fold to get people to the third row, it is an electrically adjustable seat like you see in a Mercedes S-Class. That said, the third row does present a bit of a problem. That is only on offer in a V6 all-wheel drive and the middle model. So this fancy one cannot have the third row seat. You know what? Let me know in the comments below, is that a problem? Would you want the third row seat in the fancy one or the cheap one? Because to get it, one has to get the advanced, which is the middle model of the V6, which ain't cheap, $65,050. Let's you and I back down to comfort mode and dig a bit deeper on another trick. There is a noise canceling mode here. And no, it's not just for the audio system, it's for the entire vehicle to cancel out excessive road noise. What's unique about this application is a series of sensors, microphones, and get this, accelerometers at each wheel that can predict any noises that will have an impact on the cabin in the near future. That in turn communicates with the brain of the car, which in turn communicates with the speakers to create a white noise to counterbalance whatever the offending noise is. Does it work incredibly well? Yeah, I mean, it's definitely quieter than an X5 or a GLE, but is it life-changing? I wouldn't say so. At this point along our journey of making our cars computers, most folks, even those that are not into cars, are well aware that sensors here, as well as cameras in the windscreen and around the vehicle, R4 Smart Cruise Control on the journey to Level 2 autonomy. Now, we discussed in the tech review, this really is no different. Now, there is Smart Cruise Control, but where it diverges is it has machine learning. Now, I did speak to one of the Genesis engineers and got some details on what exactly it is learning. And when the system is switched off, it is still trying to learn the speed at which you drive, how you brake, and your reaction times. Now, in all seriousness, I do hope that information is not shared with law enforcement, and if they do share the data within the Hyundai Kia Group or elsewhere, I do hope that information is made random and not associated to specific drivers. That said, I absolutely feel this is foreshadowing Skynet. Remember in the tech review we talked about the Ergo seats, I'm guessing that's ergonomic seats. Well, here it's very similar to the Mercedes-Benz pneumatic seats from like way back in the late 70s, early 80s. But this is automatic. And we've seen this in like Cadillacs as well as like really fancy British cars where it can adjust automatically different parts of the seats. Here it can be done the seat bottom, the seat back, or the whole seat. However, the more unique bit about it, when it goes into sport mode, it tightens up around your lower back. Does it make a huge difference? Not exactly. I'd like to be more snug in the seat, but it's a neat trick. The GV80, it's really good, even considering the fact that it has to fight in arguably the most competitive segment in the car world. I'd go so far as to saying it's better than any Genesis that came before it. Even would say it's better in some ways than a Mercedes GLE or a BMW X5. Yes, those two edge it out dynamically, but from a content value and in some areas of design perspective, I would say the GV80 edges it out, especially from a presence perspective. That said, I'm having a really hard time with the one we drove today at $72,000. Because when you get into $70,000, no matter the type of vehicle, that opens up a lot of options. Like for example, in our BMW M440i episode, that was a coupe, that was $70,000. And that arguably is now once again the benchmark in that segment. But $70,000, one could have a very well-equipped Porsche for that kind of money, or go into something completely different. And that is the same problem with a $72,000 GV80, and here is a great example. For $1,000 more, one can have the most basic BMW X7. Yes, that BMW X7 will be a car with no equipment like the GV80 had. That car will most likely have abysmal resale, and that car will most likely leave you on the side of the road after owning it for 5 years. So there's that to take into account. But I feel when you get into 70 grand, people do prize the badge. Could be wrong, I'll let you guys opine in the comments about that. That said, you may notice the car next to me is not a GV80, and once again, I have sandbagged you. No, Genesis did not send one car, they sent two, and you will be getting a full first drive review of this Tasman Blue 3.5 twin turbo V6 G80 in 2 days. Yes, we're going to have a special episode this coming Monday on the 2021 G80. Until I see you then, Bish Beta.